fasted cardio, calories in, calories out, no carbs after dark, eat less, move more, cut the sugar, cut the alcohol, try this protocol, try that diet. Here's a question. What if none of that works? Last week, I had a call with a woman in exactly that spot. She had been trying to lose weight her entire life. And after spending the last few months on another attempt that got her approximately 0 movement on the scales, she came to me for help. And as we dug further back through her history, the list of everything that she'd ever tried just kept getting longer and longer. Different diets and protocols and cleanses and coaches, just an absolutely mammoth list spanning literally decades of trying. And she said to me, hey, I've watched that video that you put out on how people lose weight and they gain it again, and that's the problem. But that's not me. I haven't lost it in the first place, and I'm getting desperate. All of the rules that you hear about how fat loss works, I just don't think that they apply to me. And here's what I told her. I said, you're wrong, lady. Sounds pretty stiff of me, I know. And maybe it even was, because if the rules were gonna bend for anyone, they would bend for this lady. This poor woman had it all. She had autoimmune conditions, she had thyroid issues, she was going through menopause, literally everything working against her. And I still told her that she was wrong, because the rules of fat loss do not make exceptions for anyone, not even someone like her, where you could very easily think that a calorie deficit is just not gonna work. Here's the thing about fat loss. It's just physics. There is no magic. It is not something that works differently depending on who you are or what your body's been through or what your conditions are. The rules do not change, not for anyone or anything in the entire universe. If you're not losing weight, it does not mean that the rules just don't apply to you. It means that you are not following them right. Even if you think that you are, and even if that sounds like I'm being a little bit mean. I get it. I have been doing this for a very long time. I have worked with people in complicated situations and also people in normal ones where, just like I've experienced, it seemed like they absolutely should have been losing weight and they weren't. And you can see that as this sucks, or you can see it, as I put it to my client, as a very good thing, because it means that you can do something about it. It is not some big bold claim that I'm making that a calorie deficit applies to absolutely everyone. The rule is concrete. It's like saying that if you tip water out of a cup, that there's going to be less water left in the cup. That's a fact. Nobody argues with that. No one would go,
oh, that works for other people's cup, but that doesn't work for my cup.
But here's where people, me in the past, and this client of mine, and maybe even you, go wrong. You can't say that you poured water out of a cup just because you tilted it. You can only say that you poured water out when there is less water in the cup. That is the only definition that counts. And it's the same with a deficit. You're not in one because you ate less or because you trained harder. You're in a deficit if there's less fat on your body. That is how you know. So if the scale isn't moving, if there's still the same amount of water in your cup, so to speak, then whatever you were doing, no matter how tough it felt, no matter how hard you were trying, it wasn't a deficit yet. Now, let me go back to my client. She said something in passing during our phone call that's worth mentioning. She said that there was one time that she'd lost a little bit of weight back in her 30s and she was doing everything wrong. Coca-Cola all the time, fruit candy for breakfast, McDonald's whenever she wanted, and she was doing a little bit of running. And that was a routine that, by her own words, was frankly embarrassing, and yet she lost weight. That means that she was pouring, not just tipping her cup. Whatever she was eating, however bad it looked and how backward it seems, that routine was emptying the cup. The physics were working on her then the same way that they are working on her now. And they are working on you too, whether you've got health issues or whether you've got none and you were just having a hell of a time losing weight. And that's good news. That means that you are not broken. Nothing works for me is not a diagnosis. It just means that there is a block somewhere. There is something keeping water in the cup when it should be coming out. And a block, unlike being broken, can be removed. It can be fixed. There are 3 places that you will see one. Sometimes you will only have one of them. Sometimes you have all 3. I'm going to run you through each of them. The first block is the one that feels the most unfair. And the reality is there are people out there who are genuinely getting ripped off by this one. But note that I say ripped off, not that I'm saying that the rules don't apply. There are some people out there though who have been dieting for such a long time that their body has just learned to live on less. Some women are going through menopause. Some people have chronic health conditions that are just making this process harder. But the result is the same across all of them. For these people, their output is just lower than any standard calorie calculator or any coach or any YouTube video is going to tell them. And a diet that is supposed to work for them, that would work for anyone else, may not be right for their circumstances. That's block one. Your body is burning less than you think it is. But here's what that means and what it doesn't mean. It does not mean that the physics have changed. It means that your cup is a different size than you thought. The rules still apply. You just need to find your number, how hard you need to tip to get water out of your cup. It is a process, and it's not fair that you're having a tougher time, but it is possible, I promise you. Now, the second one is kind of sneaky because it might feel like you're doing everything right. And you might be executing perfectly, genuinely. But here's how it comes up. Maybe you used a calorie calculator and the inputs that you gave it weren't quite right. Maybe your coach built you something that's perfect for the average person, but it's just not right for your body. Maybe you're eating clean and eating whole foods and assuming that because it's healthy, it must be low enough calories, but you've never actually sat down and counted what it adds up to. Block number two is that your plan is a great plan, but it's just not actually a deficit. So you think that you're pouring water out of the cup, but the angle that you're tipping at was never really steep enough to begin with. And the scale is trying to tell you that by not moving. So if that's what you're seeing, block number two might be where you need to look. And the third one, this is the big one. This is the most common one. And if this is your block, do not panic because I will tell you what to do about it. But this one comes about when you're getting a little bit fast and loose on the weekends, or where you start being a bit more generous about the schmear on your bagel or the peanut butter on your toast, or you forget to track a few things kind of just by accident. The point is that somewhere in there, what might have been a deficit has now disappeared, even if you thought that you were still on the plan. Block three is you're just plain old not executing as consistently as you think you are. Been there. If you've ruled out the first two and the scale still isn't moving, then you need to be really honest with yourself because the answer is almost always in block three. But look, whichever one it is, or if it's a combination of all three, here's what I want you to take away from this. You are not broken. The physics apply to you the same way they apply to everybody else, which means that if things aren't working, it is solvable. The name of the game when it seems like nothing is going to work for you is as simple as asking, where is my block? Then allow me to give you some advice from someone who has made this mistake. Start with block number three. Start with your consistency. Before you blame anything else, blame you. Assume that it is you. Be really honest about whether or not you're executing as tightly as you actually think that you are. Pick your own execution apart because the reality is most of the time, the answer is here. It is you. And if you've genuinely done that and it all checks out, then look at block number two. Is your plan actually a deficit? Are the portions right? Are the numbers or the diet appropriate for your goals? And the last place, and I mean the last place that I would look, is block number one. Not because it doesn't happen, it does, but it is also the easiest thing to hide behind, and most people reach for it first when they should be reaching for it last. So if nothing is working for you, find your block and fix it. The physics are on your side. And for most people, it's just that their own execution isn't. And if you already know that that's your block, that you're not executing the way that you probably should be, and you just can't work out why you keep falling off the plan, watch this video next. I'll show you why it happens and I'll tell you what you should do about it.